This is the Vision 79 podcast where my friends Sander and myself, Mason, discuss recent developments in our business and personal growth. The name Vision 79 comes from our respective racing numbers. Sander's is 40, mine is 39, and we have a shared vision for success in our business and personal lives. Many successful people have started small, just like us, but very few of them have documented their process. We intend to be the first to document our journey from start to finish. I usually like to start off with a summary of what our week has looked like. That way in the future, we can look back and get a general perspective on where we were in our business journey. And as a brief summary, we worked on structural design development for some of the physical structures that we'll need. We did more location research on where we want to place this business. We found some good locations.
Good prospects.
We've reached out. One location I didn't get an email back from. I sent a follow-up email today, but if I don't hear back, I'm going to call them this week because I'm very interested in it. I stopped by it yesterday. And we're just waiting on funding, which kind of blows because we have like so much that we can do once we have access to the funding, but we're so limited right now. It kind of hurts.
Yeah, we're not at a standstill yet, but we are running out of things on the list.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, worst case scenario, if we hit a day where we're like, dude, that's all the prep done. Like all we have to do is push the buy button and then start physically building with our hands. That's not a terrible thing. Because then as soon as we do have funding, like we can just roll right into it.
Yeah.
The problem is if we hit that point, we have to sit on our hands until we do get funding.
Yeah.
That is going to drive us insane.
Yeah.
And at that point,
that will be.
Me neither. And I don't know what we do at that point because I can't just sit still.
Right.
But I think we still have a solid couple weeks of work that we can do to fill our time. But it's getting there. We did not get a response from our partner on our email last week, so we should follow up with him.
We did not.
Maybe shoot him a text today and say, hey man, like, did you get a chance to read the email? You know, we need some feedback. But I have a crazy segment to break us into this podcast. I read it to you earlier this week.
Yep.
This is what I'm going to open with. Here's some crazy math. Counting using seconds, 1 million seconds is 11 days. 1 billion seconds is 31 years. That means if you started earning money at $1 per second today, you'd be a billionaire at the age of 54. Sander's 33. We're 23. We're both 23. For reference, right now with our 9-to-5s, we're making about $0.0025 a second. At this rate, we'll be billionaires in about 12,500 years. That's over 300 generations from now. That's just 1 billion. Jeff Bezos is worth 200 billion. At our current rate, it would take 2.5 million years to reach his net worth. To put that in perspective, the earliest recorded stone tools were found to be crafted 2.4 million years ago. That means at this current rate, we are literally closer to our ape ancestors that hadn't started using stone tools than we are to reaching Jeff Bezos' net worth. And that's why we need to build a business.
That's wild.
Yeah. Even if you double it, dude, I'm making 80K right now, 80K a year. If I made 160,000, fuck it, we'll round up. We'll say 200,000. $200,000 a year is a decent amount of money, right? Like people out of college would kill for 200,000 a year, right? Let's cut that in half. That's 1 million years that we would have to wait to work. And that's every second. Like, that's such a fucking insane statistic to me. Because, like, I've seen the TikTok. It's that dude it's the redhead dude talking about 1 million seconds is 11 days. And is 31 years. But, like, if you put that into perspective of money, that's insanity. That's insanity. I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, Alex Hormozy, I listened to a bunch more of his stuff this week, and he talks a lot about how he prioritizes dollars per hour. Like if he finds something that gets him $50 per hour, he doesn't do anything that is worth less than $50 an hour. So like as soon as he started making decent money, he was like, okay, I'm not cooking, I'm not cleaning, I'm not doing grocery shopping, I'm not doing any of these things because I can pay someone for less than $50 an hour to do it.
Right.
And I can spend that hour making the money to pay for that. Right. And so I think it's wild to think that people stay in their 9-to-5s making so little in comparison to what they could be making if they really just put their nose to the grindstone and grinded for like 5 years, you know? And then I think it's crazy that, well, I said that, you know, people are complacent with their pay. right? And it makes me excited that there's so much potential to make so much more per hour if you just grind a little bit and build something decent.
Yeah. It's crazy because being a millionaire is a goal for a lot of people, and most people only reach it in retirement. Like they have a million in their 401k, right?
Some people even only reach it through like assets, like the house they've been paying off for 3 years too. Like some people don't even reach it through like monetary value.
Yeah.
It's just like if I accumulate all the things I've ever bought in my life, I have $1 million worth of potential things.
And that's such bullshit. Like, I remember when we were getting out of college, I was like, oh, I wonder what my net worth is. And I'll come up with a net worth tracker so I can track it every day and see how much closer to my goals I'm getting, right? Because if I add up all the money in my Lego collection, in my car, and my, I don't know, if I sold a kidney, like how much money do I have available to me right now? Because that's my net worth. Right. But Robert Kiyosaki in Rich Dad, Poor Dad pointed out a great strategy of thinking about net worth. Because realistically, if you're hard on money, you're not going to sell a kidney, right? Like you're going to try and get a job working minimum wage or something. You'll do whatever you can to make money, but you're not going to sell a kidney if you're penniless on the streets. No one wants a fucking kidney, right?
Yeah.
The way you measure net worth is by saying, if you lost your all sources of income tomorrow, like incoming money is zero, how long could you stay alive?
Yeah.
Spending how you're spending right now and, not egregiously, but not bare bones, how long would it be? Net worth isn't a measure of dollars, it's a measure of time. And that time is how long can you make it with what you currently have? And if you have 15 houses, right, and $5,000 in your bank account, you only need one of the houses. You could sell the other houses, right? You could even downgrade from the house you're in right now. That's okay. But the point is, if you stopped making money tomorrow, how long could you make it? And that's really interesting to me because, like, it's my only car. I'm not going to sell my car. Right? I could sell the Lego. I don't really use it and I don't really like it. So like there's 20 grand that I can liquidate tomorrow. I know it's easier said than done, like the Hot Wheels, but you see what I'm saying? But like, I'm not going to sell my house and live in a cardboard box because that's not really the meaning of net worth, right? But I could downsize, live in an apartment. And that's a really interesting perspective that he took on it that changed my understanding of net worth.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I've been working towards through saving and selling odd end stuff is trying to get my capital up to increase the time that I can last without income.
It's literally, we're literally trying to get our net worth as high as we can so that we can quit our jobs and start this business. Yeah. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
You're dead on.
Get the net worth as high as you can and then
fucking drain
decline it over the course of 2-3 months and then hopefully pick it back up if things go up.
But that's why it's so difficult for people to make that jump. Because I started thinking about this the other day, right? When you're working a 9 to 5, like let's say this is the level at which you need to live. Like you spend this amount of money every month to live. Your job is here, right?
Yeah.
Business can take you fucking through the ceiling, right?
Right.
But in order to get there, you first have to drop below this to zero for a set amount of time. And that amount of time is how long it can take you to build a business. And most people are so afraid of this, they don't even think about that. They don't even think about the ceiling because you have to drop to zero before you can get going. And some people build businesses on the side until like one makes more than the other. But I'll tell you right now, because I started thinking about this with Kahuna Cravings is, okay, I make $80,000 a year right now. If Kahuna Cravings starts making me $80,000 a year, I'll quit my job and do Kahuna Cravings full time. But think about it this way. It takes time for Kahuna Cravings to grow to 80,000.
Yeah.
So at one point, I'll be making 120,000, 140,000, 160,000. If I'm making $160,000 a year, I won't want to quit my job, give up 80,000 a year, and essentially cut my pay in half, right? Odds are I'm going to see a positive trend from Kahuna Cravings, and when it's making me $50,000 a year, I'll take the pay cut because I have that mindset. But for most people, if I said, hey, if you work an extra 4 hours a day, like you'll make X amount more money, they're so scared that they'll wait until it makes exactly what they're making from the 9 to 5 and then quit. And that's something that I've always disagreed with. Waiting until you make it your exact salary from your 9 to 5 with your business to quit. I don't think that makes any sense. You're stretching yourself too thin and you're hurting your business by not giving it.
I think it's really challenging to build a business that's worth growing exclusively, to build the business exclusively while you're still working the 9 to 5 and have that business be worthwhile.
Yes.
And the reason I say that is because there are these programs on TV that you've probably seen too, where it's like they give some millionaire $3.75 to build $1 million business in 90 days, right? And that business that he ends up building, it might be $1 million, $2 million, $3 million business, but that business isn't the same type of business he would build if he was given 2 years. Because in 2 years, if you give yourself that mindset, then you're like, okay, now it's not just about building $1 million business. How can I make this $1 billion business?
Yeah.
Right. And make it worth way more, because that same business that you build to reach 1, 2, 3 million isn't the same type of business that you're going to build to reach $1 billion. Right. And so it's the same principle in your side business work. If you only have this limited time while still working your 9 to 5 and exclusively that limited time, and you never quit your 9 to 5 to grow that business, you might grow it in such a manner that it will not be able to expand to the real great business that you hope it will. You have to make the leap of faith and really dedicate the time and the effort to make it really worth something, and dig down to find the fundamental problem in your business and then solve that problem. Not just mask it through the limited time you have after your 9 to 5 continuously for multiple years. You have to make the jump.
That's something that I really love about the business that we're about to get into. What we're going to make the jump from the 9 to 5 into this is because your first business is never your last business, right? And this is a perfect example of that, because I don't think this is our $1 billion business. And I'm happy with that, because I don't want it to be, because it's not in the spirit of the community for it to be, right? For this to work, it has to be highly community-based, and it has to be, socially aware and genuine. It can't be a $1 billion thing, right? Like, your iPhone is soulless. There's nothing fancy about your iPhone. You don't feel special when you're using it. Everybody has one because it's a $1 billion corporation, right? But what I love about the business that we're getting into is that it is special, and it is unique, and it is a safe space. And I love that about what we're doing, because eventually we will get to the large scale business that grows into billions and has tons of people, and we're so far removed from the consumer base. But I love that we have the opportunity to work directly with people, and that's going to help us get out of our 9 to 5 and give us the time to build that $1 billion business down the road.
Right.
I find it grounds me, and I really like that. Without getting into too many specifics.
Right.
Anyways, so that's
what do you think a $1 billion business that you'd be interested in would be?
I don't know yet. I don't know yet, and I don't even know if it exists yet.
Right.
I'm not sure. I've given it some thought. And I think what I've concluded is I really want to focus on the right now, because this is the inflection point going from 9 to 5 to first business. It has to work. Give it all of your attention now. And once that starts running smoothly, I'll start looking for the next thing. And when I start looking for the next thing, I should heavily consider, is this the $1 billion thing?
Yeah.
And I think at that point,
I think it could be a version of what we're working on now.
I think it could,
or an aspect of it that then we divert from and grow. I know, just grow that singular aspect.
Yeah, I know what you're thinking about.
Right.
And that totally could be it. I think there's no way to know unless we go for it and commit like 5 or 10 years to it.
I think what appeals to me about that prospect is that Alex Hormozi, again, talks a lot about how if you want to build $1 billion business, you have to figure out what hasn't been done yet. Like, you will be carving the path for it. Right. And I see it as someone hasn't done it yet, right? And I see it has potential, and it's in a market that's growing. So there's opportunity in that sense. But I don't know. I don't have the full picture yet. I have like pieces of the puzzle, but I can't paint the whole picture yet.
Yeah.
So I don't really know. And I think that we will know as we go through the motions more.
Yeah. I think that my biggest roadblocks with it are, I don't want to talk about them on camera, but my biggest concerns with them aren't really related to what it is, because I enjoy what it is. It's more about where could it be going in the future, and how does that look for a potential business owner. But I think my main point in saying all of that is I'm not worried about the $1 billion business right now, because I need to build my $100,000 business first.
Right.
Like, I need to burn $50,000, fucking whatever I need to live and have more time, because essentially all I'm trying to do is get 40 hours a week back. And even if I can cut 40 down to 10, that's a huge jump for us.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
And eventually we can probably get that down to 0, because we can hire somebody to manage it for us once all the hard work is done.
Yeah.
And then we can just enjoy the product as customers and not even worry about it from a logistical standpoint. I think that's a really awesome.
We'll probably still have meetings and stuff like that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we'll still be leaders.
Working in the business.
Yeah. Anyways, so that's my opening segment. I have some cool quotes this week. I don't really have many questions this week. They're mostly just quotes.
Okay.
But I'm sure they'll lead into discussion. But I want to start with one of your things because we just talked about my thing.
Yeah. Alex Hormozy, again, has a quote that says, quote, "If people know that they can control your behavior by pushing this button to get a response from you, more people will hit that button," end quote. Do you have any buttons that people regularly push? And how have you changed or mitigated the effect of those buttons?
I don't anymore. This is similar to my quote from one of the previous weeks, which was, the more emotional you are, the more easier you are to control. Or what the fuck was it? It was like the more emotionally unstable you are, like the easier you are to upset, the easier you are to control. Mm-hmm. It's just like that. Because Hormozy talks about his mom pushing that button to piss him off, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I have that button anymore. I think I got rid of it after this last breakup. I was like, I'm not going to let anyone bother me anymore, right? My mom used to know how to press it, and she would press it almost unintentionally, but from like a mother, like, I want you to be okay standpoint, which was like, I don't think you need to take all that risk. You don't know what you're doing. That's not a good idea. Don't quit your job. Just stay in college and like get good grades. You know, you don't want to go be an environmental activist in Australia. You want to go to college and get like, you need to pay for your living, right?
Right.
And that comes from a place of concern because she wants me to be safe and happy and healthy. But it presented itself to me in my younger years as, oh, well, you don't think I can do it. And it's something that I want to do. And if I'm fighting against the odds and it's something I want to do, I'm going to get it done. But I've just become generally less upsettable because I just don't care about other people's opinions anymore, right? Like, and less apologetic as well. I've considered recently, this is a tangent, but I'll bring it back. I've considered recently, when I say I'm sorry to people, do I mean it? And do they feel that I mean it? Because I've found that the people I respect more are the people who only say they're sorry when they genuinely are, and I feel it from them, right? So a great example in day-to-day is, instead of, if you're late to something, don't say, I'm so sorry I'm late, say thank you for your patience, right? That kind of thing. That's an easy way to pull I'm sorry out of your vocabulary, because an apology needs to be sincere. And if you say it all the time, it's not sincere, there's nothing special about it. But if you hold it away for the moments where you really mean it, then you give more credence to it. And I really like that thought. So yesterday I was parking at Sam's Club, and the way the Sam's Club parking aisles are laid out is, as you're driving down, on your right are slanted spots this way for you to pull in, and on your left for oncoming traffic are spots slanted the other way, right? I'm driving behind this black Audi, and there's a spot open on the right, and then a little further down the spot open on the left. And he passes the spot on the right, and he gets all the way over to the right, clearly angling to get into the spot on the left, but an oncoming car pulls up and takes the spot. And so I'm like, all right, the Audi's waiting for this guy to park so he can get past. So I sneak past the Audi into the spot on the right that he just passed, right? And as I get out of the car, I hear him say something to me. And so I turn around, and it's him. He's got his wife in the passenger seat and a kid in the back. And he's talking to me. And I go, what? And he goes, I was going to park there. And without hesitation, I said, no, you weren't. These spots are angled this way. You've already passed it. You pulled to the right to pull into that spot before the guy came in. You weren't going to park here. And he was like, I was going to back in. And I was like, no, you weren't. And then I turned to Grace and I was like, are you ready to go, baby? And like, we walked in, and he just stayed there. Yeah. And so Grace was like, I hope he doesn't do anything to our car. And I was like, you have a dash cam. I don't give a fuck if he does. And like, I think that myself a year ago would have apologized and said like, oh, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to move my car. And maybe 2 years before that, I would have said, I'm sorry, I'll move my car for you. But like, I don't care anymore. Yeah. I forgot even what your question was and how it relates to that.
It relates. My question was about regarding what buttons do you have, and do you have anyone push them, or how do you mitigate the effect of those buttons? Mm-hmm. So it all relates.
Yeah. What buttons do you think I have? When do you see me get upset?
It's hard for me to say because I can't think of a single moment or single time I've ever had a conversation with you that I've gone into the conversation thinking, I'm going to push Mason's buttons to try and get this out of him. No. Like, I've never gone into a conversation with you.
No, but you have gone into conversations with me thinking he might get upset.
That's fair.
And from my perspective, oftentimes those conversations end.
I think every time.
End with you saying, I don't know why I didn't tell you for so long. I thought you would get upset. And then I say to you, dude, I'll never get upset with you. I love you. Like, even if I am upset, I'm going to present myself fucking professionally. Right?
I think that that's not so much what buttons I think I could press. I think that's more of me taking how I grew up and my family experiences and applying those to all situations and not having a distinctive line between, okay, those situations were fucked up. That's not how future situations have to be.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think that I'm working on distinguishing that through my barrier. I am getting better at it. I can see there is improvement. Although it's slow, it is there. I think it would be hard for me to pinpoint buttons. Actually, I thought of one. Dogs in public spaces that shouldn't be there.
Pisses me off.
Yeah.
It pisses me off.
I thought of one. That pisses both of us off, to be fair.
Yeah. But that's more of like a dislike. Like in a conversation, what can you say to me to like really get under my skin? Not get a reaction out of me like, oh, I love dogs. And I'm like, fuck dogs. Because I don't feel that way. Right. I don't care. Like, bring your dogs wherever you want. If I have a problem with it, I'll leave. Right. It might not be polite to bring your dog on an airplane, but like, what am I going to do about it?
Right.
But in conversation, I don't know that there's much that people can say to me that would bother me. What used to upset me was conversations about rowing, because rowing is highly competitive, right? And I was a competitive athlete in high school and college. Actually, our team just went and medaled at the International Rowing Association Regatta, which is
congrats.
Every single team, the top collegiate teams in all of the United States compete at this one regatta. It's like the top 15 teams or something, right? Mm-hmm. So like we're talking Harvard, Brown, what's the other one? The big one.
MIT has a big rowing team.
What's Yale has the Ivy Leagues, right? And our team medaled. They got third place over every single college. This was the 4 categories. So there are only 8 people in the United States faster than these guys. Total. 2 boats faster than them. Big, huge deal, right? This is one of the best results we've gotten in our program's history. And I thought it was interesting because this time last year, Florida Tech was trying to cut us. And despite that, like these guys were freshmen, half of them were freshmen, like totally green as they were trying to cut us. And they stuck through that through a fucking club program last year and a recovery program this year, and they still medaled, which is incredible, right? Very, very proud of them. But my point is, I'm built to be an athlete. I've competed at the highest level, and I'm not as fast as the 7 foot tall, 300 pound, all muscle Lithuanian monsters that I rode with, right? And that's fine. I don't expect myself to be. Right. All I expect is that I show up every day and I give 100%. But when people who don't know about rowing say, oh, my buddy's a rower, right? And he asked me what your 2K time is. I'm like, I was in the low 630s, right? He was like, oh, he says that's a terrible time. And I go, fuck, dude, I'm smaller than 6 foot. I weigh at the time I was like 180 pounds, right? How big is your friend? And he's like, oh, he's like 6'6" and 220. And I'm like, that's physics, man, right? And they're like, oh, but you're shit at rowing. And that used to really bother me. But since then, I've gotten the perspective of, oh, you don't row and you don't understand. And even then, if you are a rower and you still want to shit talk, then you're not a competitor because you're not graceful. Like rowing has taught me to win and lose gracefully. And if you're faster but a cunt about it for no reason, that's a problem. Right. And that's a problem on you, not on me, because I was raised to be polite in all aspects, right? You shake hands with your competitors, win or lose.
Right.
What buttons do you think you have?
I think something that really rubs me the wrong way is when people say something and then backtrack on their words and frame it in a different light than they originally intended to because they realized that how they originally said it was rude and wrong. I'll have arguments with some people or arguments in the past with people where they'll say something that was just blatantly wrong or impolite or rude. I'm like, hey, that's fucked up for X, Y, and Z reason. And they're like, well, I didn't mean it that way. I said this. And I was like, well, that's not exactly what you said. You said this, and this was the context you said it in, and this is the intent. And they'll backtrack and pause because they realize that they're wrong, but they won't admit to it.
So the problem is being wrong.
Not being wrong, but trying to reframe what you said in the past to sound better than it really sounded, rather than admitting that you just made a mistake. You're trying to continuously reframe your actions and your words so that you don't sound like you made a mistake.
Got it.
That really rubs me the wrong way. I'd rather you just say, hey, yeah, I said this. I didn't mean it. I'm sorry. I fucked up.
Or I did mean it, but it wasn't the right place.
Right. Rather than trying to backtrack and then reframe in some ridiculous way what you meant to say
Just to
so
cover
that
your
it
own
sounds
ass.
better in the
Right.
moment, right?
Right.
That really rose me the wrong way. But I used to get upset at those situations, and now I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. No worries. Because it doesn't make a difference to me at the end of the day. Like a large majority of those conversations, I'm like, I'll just go about my day how I normally would go about my day, because this person's actions or opinions or thoughts about this one situation really don't have any effect on how I'm going to pursue my life.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, cool. Like, all right, I guess you did mean it that way. Whatevs.
If you want to act like a dick and then not take the responsibility for it, like, that's your problem, not mine.
Right. Exactly.
It's not going to impact me at all.
Go for it. I'm going to move on with my day, because every second I spend on this issue is just a waste of my time.
Yeah.
I think the other thing, probably one other thing that bothers me, is people who don't have an expertise on an issue trying to give advice on that issue. For example, like advice from family about buying a car, but the family that's giving the advice has no idea, has no clue about cars. Like, doesn't know what cars are what, or how to shop for a car, or how to look for certain things or issues regarding certain cars.
Yeah.
And it's like, the advice is really frustrating, not because it doesn't bother me from the angle of, man, I have to listen to what they say and they don't know what they're saying, so now I'm worried about it. It bothers me from the angle of, you don't know what you're saying and you're taking up my time by texting me and calling me about these issues. And now you're affecting every other thing I have to do throughout the day, because I'm spending a half hour or 45 minutes throughout my day texting back on these things that have no meaning or substance, because it's an uneducated conversation. Like, there is no substance to the conversation, and I can't just magically give you 10 years of automotive research and experience.
I think I can. Yeah.
I don't mind the opinion or the thought, but when it's so outlandish and then it feels like it affects my ability to make a decision because I have to, answer all these crazy questions or deal with all these crazy issues, it really bothers me. Waste my day.
I think that comes down to, because that's the situation that you don't like, but I think God, I can't think of the word. Herbosi takes like emotions and then he puts them into quantifiable actions. Like there's a fucking word for it. I can't remember, but itemize, we'll say, to itemize that, right? I think it's similar to something that I brought up in one of our first podcasts, which is, I fucking hate when people give advice and I don't ask for it. Right? Because you're not going to ask advice from your family about car shit because they don't understand, right? If you ask for advice, they give it to you and then you shit on them for not knowing what they're talking about, that's on you. But that never happens. They'll ask you, how are things going? And you're like, oh, I'm just trying to find a new car. And they'll go, here's what you should do. Fuck no, I didn't ask you. Right? You asked me what's going on. I told you, and then you try to give me advice. And that's not going to fucking fly, right? And my parents do that a lot. I think it's because they just want to try and make conversation and they don't know how else to do it apart from sharing their experience because they're older. I get it. I can appreciate that. And I've started to handle it as, when they say that to me, I go, yeah, thanks. I don't think I'm going to do that for X, Y, and Z reason. And then they'll give me more. And then I'll say, here's the problem with that. And like, we keep going. And I've learned that, at least with people who I love and care about, like family, it's easier for me to listen to it and then tell them why I'm not going to do that, instead of just shutting them down and being like, I know more than you, go away. With strangers, I have much less fucking patience with that, because you don't know me and you're trying to tell me what to do. And it comes from an aspect of being vain. And I hate vanity.
In this situation, it was frustrating because I was asked for an update on the situation. And I was like, oh, I'm looking at this car. I sent a photo. And they're like, well, I don't really like the way that car looks. That looks shady. And I'm like, and then they're like, well, these pictures aren't good selling pictures. And I'm like, it's a picture of the car, like in good lighting. Like, I have more pictures. I sent you one because you asked for an update. I didn't send you the 25 in my messages.
Do these people have skin in the game? Because if so, I can see why they would be sharing their inputs like that. But if it's like totally out of left field, like if my mom asks you what cars you're looking at and she gives her opinion, like fuck off.
They could potentially have skin in the game, which is why I'm tolerating it.
Yes.
Right. Because I could use that.
You don't have to like it, but they're within their own rights to do it.
Right. Yeah. It's just challenging for me to work with because it really narrows down the possibilities, right? Because if this car is shut down because this picture looks strange to this family member, then it's like, well, like, even if I go look at it now, there's already a negative mindset associated with the car. So it's like, I guess I axe this one. And there's only so many out there.
Yeah.
Right. And then the other aspect of it that's frustrating is that, you know, the family member might be right almost every single time when they are pessimistic about the car that I'm showing them. But they're not right the one time it matters, when I find the car that's actually good and decent.
Right.
Right. And so it's frustrating because, you know, if I go against their will and I'm like, I'm just going to go look at it anyway, and it doesn't turn out to be what I thought it was, then I have to be like, well, fuck, I guess it's not what I thought it would be.
It's not what you thought it would be, but not because their opinion was right by looking at the picture. It's because there was unknown information that wasn't shown in it.
But they'll take it as, well, I knew that from the picture.
Because they're vain.
Right. And that's where it gets frustrating, because it's like, you know, I kind of have to ignore the negativity and just push through until, and use my own headspace and my own judgment to find something that works. And then if they don't agree with it and I think it really works, then it's just about convincing them or figuring it out on my own.
Right.
You know, but it can just be frustrating to deal with, because continuously throughout my days, I have to respond.
Right. I hear that.
But I'd love to hear one of the quotes that you have.
Yeah. I'm trying to pick one. I've got a couple right now that, okay. This one is from an Indian philosopher that I found. I ran out of Hormozi quotes to find online, and so I started looking into just ancient philosophers and even some modern ones.
I went back to Hormozi's real old stuff, because I've listened to all the newer stuff, like the old gym stuff.
I found
when it was still gym exclusive content.
I found
an
Instagram account with that stuff. He's got the handlebar mustache. It's
yeah.
2 things define you: your patience when you have nothing, and your attitude when you have everything.
2 things. What is the
2 things define you: your patience when you have nothing, and your attitude when you have everything. And I like that, because there are a lot of people who are very wealthy and act like dicks because they have everything. And it's tough to say what their patience was like when they didn't have anything. But there are a lot of people who act like dicks when they have nothing, and then are very mature when they have everything. And then there are some people who are mature both ways. And I think that very few people don't have much patience when they have nothing. They're upset about it and they're angry and they don't want to fucking listen to you, and they'll never have everything. And some of the people who are like that when they have nothing learn through work, once they have everything, that they can be mature. And I think that what's unique about us in this podcast is that we're working on our maturity while we have nothing. We're building patience. And that will pay dividends when we have everything, because the people who know us when we have everything and say, yeah, they're level-headed now, but maybe they were dicks when they were younger, or, oh, fuck them, they're wealthy because they have money, and maybe they're nice now, but they weren't always that right? We have tangible proof that when we were 23 years old and had literally nothing, we were working on our patience, we were working on our self-growth, we were trying to be mindful from the get-go.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one.
How do you think you'll be once you gain wealth? Do you think you'll be the same person you are today?
I don't think I'll be the same person tomorrow as I am today. I think I change a little bit every day, but I think that generally speaking, I try to be right now how I would be if I had a lot of wealth. I think that I would be more generous with my time and money once I have wealth. For example, I love giving big tips, right? When I have a good waitress or hostess or something, I love giving a big tip to them because I know it means a lot to them, and it won't mean as much to me once I have the money, but the sentiment is shared, right? I like to make people happy. Gift giving is my love language, right? And I don't have the means to do that right now. Like I've spoken before about how I really want to donate a lot of money to my high school rowing team to give back for all the value that I got out of rowing, but I don't have the money right now. But I have the drive to, the will to. In my monthly budget that I have for myself, I have $100 budgeted every month as gift to give to people. And I really want to maintain generosity through every step of the way, because if I die tomorrow, I won't want to die saying, well, I didn't have any money to give away, and so I didn't. Or, you know, even if I didn't have money to give away, I never gave away my time, because sometimes time is more valuable than money. Or if I don't have enough money to give away through donation, I can give time, right? And I try and do a little bit of that every month, and I track that with my budget. Dude, I fucking blow past that budget frequently. I say on average I spend $200 in gifts every month, which sucks because that's like a lot of money for me right now.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I don't know if I should sniff that out or not.
Nah, leave it in.
I feel like I'm going to leave it in. It's pretty fun.
I'm going to grab a paper towel.
I think I do really like gift giving. What I struggle with is that I have a good amount of fixed expenses in my life. And so to save what I want to save every month, I have to be really frugal. Like I have to be really cautious about how much I spend. And so it's like when we go to Pahana or Kraken, like maybe once a week I'll get an extra 12 or 24.
Mm-hmm.
And otherwise I'll go to one of those locations, get my loyalty, and then go to the other and get my loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll bring like a tea with me or something like that for the ride home or something. But it sucks because I want to be able to give back, and I want to be able, to give big tips and give to the community and, do all these awesome things. And I tell myself that I'll be able to do that once I have more income. And the only way I can get more income is by saving now so that I can quit and then pursue that greater income.
Right.
So I justify it in that sense. But it stinks because I do really like giving. I like giving gifts and I like to spend money. It's fun. But I just can't really do that right now.
Yeah. That's not a dig or a shot at you, by the way.
Oh,
that's just how I
take it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
how do you think you'll be and act when you have wealth?
Sorry, I'm still thinking about the Celsius you spilled all over your shirt and made me laugh.
Be careful with that. It fucking jumps out.
I will be ready. I think I'll be very generous, but I think I'll probably be a little bit harsher than I am now at the same time. And I'll explain that a little bit. Because as I've aged, I've grown less tolerant of people who don't do something to get out of the crappy situation they're in, right? Like I've become less tolerant of people who just complain and don't do anything or continuously bitch and moan about the same stuff over and over again to me via text. Like I just don't tolerate that. And, I entertain it for like a little bit. Like if they want to send me something, I'll be like, well, you can try to X, Y, and Z. I'll just rinse and repeat the same thing I said last month, essentially. And if they don't take to it, then I'll just ignore it and move on. Right. So I used to really entertain it and try to change them. Now I entertain it very, very little. And I think eventually I'll be at the point where I just don't respond at all. So it doesn't make a difference to me. But I think I'll be generous at the same time as if someone comes up to me and is like, hey, I've done X, Y, and Z. If they show that they've clearly tried to make steps towards bettering themselves, I will be generous in the sense of I will offer help and I will offer to tell them, X, Y, and Z things to help them out and help them grow. And I think I will have that heart in me to do that. I just don't think I'll be very tolerant of people who don't have that initial little drive and initial little step, because that's something that takes no money and it doesn't take a lot of effort when you really think about it. It just takes a little bit of effort and some patience,
right,
and some focus. It doesn't take much. And I think that if you present that to me when I'm, to my wealthy me, right, I'll see that and be like, okay, cool, like try X, Y, and Z. Because then I see a potential for my advice that I know has worked for me to go somewhere for someone else too, right? But I don't think I'll be tolerant of people who don't show that effort because they've shown nothing to me that says, hey, I'll take your advice and do something with it.
So we can't be as generous as we'd like to be right now because we don't have the money. But one day we will have the money, right?
Right.
But why can't you stop tolerating people and their lack of work ethic now? Why wait until then?
I think I do for the most part. I think so there is one reason that keeps me tolerating a little bit. And it's that I've found I never know what that person could give back in the future. So I maintain the relationship or the friendship just enough so that if something comes up, there's a potential for them to be able to assist. For example, if I'm starting, I don't know, a drone business and I want to build drones that have super high-tech cameras and they fly around and film stuff, right? And I have this friend right now who doesn't know what to do with their life, but they hate their 9 to 5 and they're trying to find something else to do, right? And then 5 years later, or we're talking about right now, I guess. Right now, I might be trying to start my drone business. And if I cut off that connection with that person, and then in the future, they have another friend who's also into drones, who's a business person, then that might be a connection. If I just keep that connection just good enough to get that loop, it might help me out in the future of the business, right? But if I completely cut off that loop, I cut myself off from that potential. So I put in just enough effort to maintain the potential, but not so much effort that it's wasted if it doesn't go through.
Yeah.
Right? So I keep it looped in just enough, just in case there's something that comes up. And so that's why I keep the potential there now. I think that I'll become less tolerant of it in the future because I think I will get more valuable connections in the future, right? That connection to that other person that has a drone friend that might be helpful to my drone company,
right,
is a low-level connection. But in my current state of when I'm trying to grow my drone business, it might be valuable. But when I already have my big drone business, that one connection of that person who's, interested in drone business, back then it might have helped me out. But now I already have 20 other people to help me out, and they're no longer really that valuable. And that's why I don't see a value in making that connection anymore in the future. But I see a value in making it now because there's a potential that there can be a loop there.
So I guess then my question is, how do you define harsh or less tolerant? How do you define that?
I think in the past, I would have connected. If I had a friend who didn't have direction, I would have connected with them regardless of their direction. And now I connect with them despite their lack of direction. I connect with them just enough to maintain a connection circle with them in case they have someone that can help me out. So I don't go out of my way to really be involved with that person's life. Right. And so therefore I consider it being less tolerant. So I guess my tolerance is a function of I do it for myself rather than for others. And the more I do things for myself, the less tolerant of just giving excessively to other people I become, right? But if someone has some potential, or if I like the person, then of course, this isn't to say I don't like having friends, or I don't like, hanging out with Joe Schmo, right? I might like hanging out with Joe Schmo, but if Joe Schmo doesn't really provide value, I have to look at it analytically and be like, okay, how much of this time is it sucking up? How much of my time is this relationship sucking up? And then how much do I have to put in to maintain the connection versus before I'd look at it as I want to maintain the connection regardless. Let me just pour everything into the connection regardless of how valuable the connection is. So in that sense, I'm less tolerant, I guess.
Something that I've learned from the mutual friend that we know is something I've recognized is every time I bring something up or every time someone else brings something up to him, he has the same response, which is, that's awesome, go for it. And my ideas are awesome because I'm perfect. And that guy's ideas are shit, but he still says those are good ideas, right? And something that I've recognized is if somebody looks up to you or likes you or thinks you have direction and wants to glean something from that, and they bring you your idea, if you just say, that's awesome, go for it, that's a positive interaction that's very short. Like, they're not going to ask you for your time or your input or to become an investor or a partner or whatever, because you can always say, like, hey, man, I appreciate the offer, but I have a lot on my plate. I can't do that, right? And that's fine. And they go, oh, I get it, you're busy. Busy people understand that other people are busy, right? I think that this presented itself the other week with our friend Ryan, who hates his current job and won't take steps to change it, but continues to complain about it. And complaining with no proposed solution is just whining. So a while back, I told you, oh, Ryan hates his 9 to 5. He could be a great guy to go into business with because he's an engineer too. And you were like, fucking no, he won't. Like he's not going to ever make a change. He's upset and he'll stay upset and he's not going to change. And I was like, no, give him a chance, right? And since then, it's shown a repeated pattern of he's not going to change. He's just going to keep complaining about it. And that reached a peak the other week when we were at the gym, and he was talking about like, oh, I want to change somewhere. And his boss said, hey, dude, like other people know that you're a flight risk. Like other managers are hearing about you not liking your current role and want to go somewhere else. And that's not a hireable attribute. So people don't want to hire you because they think you're just going to want to go to the next best thing. And he's like, oh, well, that's not what I mean. I just want to find something that I enjoy. And Matt was like, yeah, but you talk about not liking what you do and not taking action on it so much that it's making you a risk to other people. And so he said, oh, well, maybe I'll just move back to Minnesota and like take a job somewhere else. And I looked at him and I was like, you wouldn't do that because you're not willing to make any change at all. Right. And I like snapped at him a little bit. And then I fucking left without saying goodbye and like went and got changed and did my workout. But I've since thought about it and I'm like, what good does that do? Like it doesn't, right? Mm-hmm. I know in my head that he's not going to make any fucking change. But here's the thing. If he's feeling upset, anybody, but we'll take Ryan, for example. If they're upset with their current situation, they don't know what to do about it. And the pain of staying the same is close to the pain of change. And they bring that to me. If I tell them, that's a fucking terrible idea, you're never going to do anything, fuck you, right? There's a good chance that that's the tipping point and they might not. They might just stay unhappy, right? But you told me the other week, it doesn't cost anything to be polite. If you just say like, hey man, I support you, go for it. Let me know how it goes.
Yeah.
Right? Then maybe they do. Maybe they don't. Maybe it stays the same. And like they text you every once in a while and they're in the same spot. I'm like, okay, fine. I can spend 30 seconds shooting you a text message.
And that's what I try to do now.
Right. I think that's a good place to be at. I think that's what you should strive for, right?
But I see that as less tolerant than I used to be. But maybe I'm misusing the word tolerant.
But how much less tolerant do you want to be? Because I think that's fine. I think with where you're at right now is okay, right?
I guess my point is I don't, once I'm making, once I have a value of $5,000 an hour or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know how I'll feel about spending 1 or 2 minutes talking to the same person that I've had the same conversation with for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
That's my point.
I think that a way to quantify that is that, do you know what the difference between dreams and goals are? It's only one thing. There's only one thing that differentiates dreams from goals. And that is,
tell the odds,
a deadline.
Yeah.
Right. If you set a time for you to complete your dream, it's now a goal.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're having conversations with people like this, where your time is becoming more important, and odds are, if these same people are coming to you, they'll want your time and money instead of just your time or input. They'll probably ask more from you. And what you can say is, hey man, I love the idea. Why don't you set X goal and go achieve it and then come back to me? And they'll go and then they'll come back to you a month later and they'll be like, hey man, how you doing? And you'll be like, good. Are you closer to your goal? And they'll be like, well, and you'll be like, all right, I said I'm not going to help you until you reach that goal. That's your next checkpoint. Let me know when you get there.
Alex Hormozi talked about this in a podcast, and he said that he had these couple of kids in their 20s who were trying to start an LLC for a business. He didn't even mention the business.
Uh-huh.
And 6 months later, Alex called him back and I was like, hey, how's that business going? And they're like, oh, well, we are still trying to set up the LLC, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, that's 6 months? Like, what? And he was like, and I think in the podcast he said, like, I just didn't bother checking in on him again. Because it's so, like an LLC, setting up an LLC, even if you go through the, crazy process of hiring a lawyer and doing all this paperwork like we did, it's not more than a 2-week process. Like I think we got it done in maybe a week and a half.
Yeah.
Right. The whole thing.
Yeah.
Reading it over, making edits, communicating, sending up. Like it's not a hard process. Right. And then between getting the bank account opened, if you research a bunch of banks, like if you really go through the whole thing of researching,
maybe
then you do it, maybe a month. Right.
Yeah.
Not 6 months.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right. And so I see your point. Mm-hmm.
I sometimes feel that way. Sometimes I feel like if Hormozi called me today to check in on me and compare with where I was like 3 months ago, like not much has changed in the last 3 months. Like materialistically, tangibly, not much has changed. It's just all like we're doing research and we're posturing and structuring.
But I think he'd be proud of you because we are gaining skills, and he always badges skills.
Yeah, we are. And that's not to depreciate on what we're doing now, but I just sometimes feel like I'm ready for the next thing. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
Sorry, what's your next thing?
My next thing is
spitting.
This is a good one. Okay. Hormozi talks about how there was one point in his life where he realized that his goal was not to be happy. It was to be useful.
Mm-hmm.
Because he realized that the work sucked and it didn't make him happy. So he was just going to set his bar at being unhappy, and then anything better than unhappy was good. Right? Yeah. And so his goal in life is to be as useful as possible and do cool shit. That's a quote from him. Right? My question is, what is your goal in life? Is it to be happy? Is it to be useful? Is it to do cool shit? But, what is it? What is your goal?
My goal in life?
Yeah, the goal of your existence, or the meaning of your existence. What do you see it as? Or do you have a definition?
Continuous growth.
Yeah.
Like, I resonate with that Hormozy bit on I just decided to be unhappy, because I hit that exact point like a year and a half ago. Like, when I went through that bad breakup, I was so fucking depressed for like 2 months. And at the end of it, I just thought to myself, like, oh, okay, this doesn't get better. Like, I'm just gonna be depressed. But that doesn't mean the world stops. I'll just be depressed. I've been eating and sleeping and working every day despite being depressed. Like, I'll just keep fucking doing it, right? But try and find what makes me happy and do more of that. And that's when I discovered what makes me happy, because previously it was working on my relationship made me happy, right? But when I lost that, I was like, what am I going to work on now, right? So I built a relationship with you and SAE. Now I have a physical thing to grow, a project to grow. Ooh, I like that, right? Now we're out of college. What's a physical project that I can work on and grow that also makes me money? Because I have dreams like everybody else of owning McLarens and Ferraris and racing teams, right? And that's not going to happen if I don't have money. And if I love building teams that are larger than me, that help people, and I want to have money, that's the same thing. I don't care if I'm happy or not, because I'm not right now, so who cares, right? And in identifying that and just doing the work anyways, I have become happier. I'm so much happier now than I was at that point, right? I can't say I'm fully fulfilled, because like there's still, that part of me deep down where if I really fucking find dude, the other day I did a bike, I did cardio, and every time I do cardio, I remember that I was once an athlete, and they're like that dog is still in there somewhere, right? And like the switch flips, and I fucking remember how fucking upset I am and how angry I am and how much emotion I have like pent up, and I can choose when to unleash it. But I know that part of me is still in there. Like, I'm still unhappy deep down. And I think everybody is. I don't think there's a single fucking person that's 100% happy all of the time. You're unhappy sometimes. And if your goal is to be 100% happy all of the time, that's great for you, but it's unrealistic for me. Because what makes me happy is growth. Stagnation is death, and I want to grow. And I want to grow. It's in the title of our thing, right? It's growth in personal business and life.
Yeah.
Those are the two things that I want. So as long as I'm growing every day, I'm happy.
I'd agree with that. I never really connected with the mindset that a lot of my friends had, which was I just want to be happy. Like, I just want to live enough life to feel happy.
Fuck, quantify
quantify it. And then additionally, like, it really never sat right with me. Like, it never really made a ton of sense to me, because what these kinds of people do is they go to a 9-to-5 and stick there for 40 years and then try to find band-aids throughout their entire rest of their life to cover up the fact that they hate their 9-to-5, and then they just, through their brainwashing, assume that they're now happy because they have all these little band-aids covering up all the little problems.
Yeah.
Right? And so my goal, like yours, is to just grow, become the best version of myself. And another side note too is, like, a month ago when I was dealing with all this accident stuff and, my computer's breaking and being financially stressed out and blah, blah, blah. Like, I was really stressed every day.
Breaking is a fun word to use.
Yeah. I ran over both my laptops with my car because I forgot the bags were behind me and I drove them over. And so I was really stressed out, and I just kind of pushed through my days and kept working, kept doing it. And now I wake up and I'm like, man, it feels so nice to not be infinitely stressed out about external shit that I don't have control over. Like, I'm so happy to be working on just myself again, rather than working on shit that has to do with other people and then trying to fit in all my other stuff in between.
Yeah.
Like, it's so nice because I feel like I'm working towards my goal of becoming the best version of myself I can. Right. But a month ago, I felt like I was a little bit stagnant in that sense because I was dealing with all this other stuff that I had no control over that I had to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had control over running over my laptops, but in the moment it happened. So
Right. Right.
You know, and so it's been very relieving to be back on track.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a difference between macro happiness and micro happiness, which is, you know, if I ask you, like, are you happy at this point in your life? You might say yes or no. You might say, no, I'm not happy because I'm dealing with this accident thing. Or you might say, yes, I'm happy because everything is going well for me and I don't want the money, right? But I think on the micro level, it's, are you happy in this present moment, right? Like if you close your eyes and focus on where you are right now and your current emotional state, are you happy or not? And I find that even in the large scale macro happiness, I can still be happy on a micro scale if I focus on it. Because when I was in high school, they had a drunk driver come speak at our high school. Like he had been in an accident and killed a family of 4 and did time. And now he's a motivational speaker. But he was paralyzed from the waist down. And in his speech, he was like, I understand that you like partying and I understand that you like drinking and sometimes those overlap and whatever. You're young, you're dumb, you're reckless, you're invincible, but I need you to know that you're not. And I need you to know that you're grateful for what you have, even if you don't realize it. But I encourage you to be mindful in a specific way because I'm paralyzed from the waist down. So if you ever find yourself losing touch with reality, wiggle your toes and just remember that you're grateful. And so very frequently, right? Like I'll fucking wiggle my toes and I'll like swing my arms around and I'll go like this because I get canker sores all the time and I love not having canker sores, right? And I'll fucking bend my arms without it hurting because 80-year-old Mason is going to really fucking miss that. And I'll run my hand through my hair because I have a full head of hair still. Like if you just take a moment to appreciate that you're happy and healthy and fit and the fucking alive, you can be happy micro. And even if you're upset in the macro and not happy, you're not where you want to be. We don't have funding for our business. I still work my fucking 9 to 5. I have to wake up at fucking 7 a.m. to go to work tomorrow. I have to go to the fucking gym. I only have 3 hours to work. I got to do meal prep when I get home. If I'm unhappy in the macro, I can still wiggle my toes.
Yeah.
The rest of it doesn't matter.
That's what got me through those hard days like a month ago. It was just like the little moments of laughing. Because everything else was so fucking stressful and I had so much anxiety. Like I had to take solace in the little moments.
Right.
You know, and that got me through my day.
Right.
For sure. So I totally get that. I relate to that.
Yeah.
Do you have a quote to link to that?
Dude, I have fucking so many quotes. I don't know. I have 3. These two bleed real well together. For one, I would love to get through all my quotes today because I always run out of time, but we'll keep going.
Yeah, let's do this one. Yeah.
If it's important to you, you will find a way. If not, you will find an excuse. And I really like that because it's consistent with my...
If there's a will, there's a way.
Right, yeah. It's you don't find time, you make time. You don't run out of time for things. You didn't prioritize it. Take responsibility for it. But the next two tie in together, and I really love it. Okay, here's the quote. These are 2 that like wrap into it. Mm-hmm. This one's from Greg Snavely, our friend from the bar. Tenacity is either easy or impossible. You're either born with it or you'll never have it. And that really opened my eyes because it's like Hormozy's, if you're not a star performer from day one, you won't be. Like, don't bother wasting your time with somebody who isn't going to turn out to be anything because they'll present from day one if they care and are motivated. And I love that because some people don't know how to work hard and never will. The people that you continuously have conversations with and they're like, I just don't know what I'm like. I feel like I'm meant for more, but they don't fucking do anything. They don't have tenacity. And it's not something that can be built. Right?
Can you define tenacity for me?
Tenacity is like determination. It's like the will to grind, right?
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. So people who aren't born with that fucking like go get 'em attitude, usually don't ever have it.
Or they have to go through some major shift in their life to be able to acquire it.
Yeah.
Like if they go through some major hardship, they can acquire it. Like I've seen that before. But yeah. A lot, 99% of people who don't have it from a young age, I don't think will gain it.
Never will. And Greg was talking about how he doesn't work hard, but he's successful. And he's never understood that. And he doesn't think that hard work is important. And I, countered him on that with, dude, Elon Musk works 150-hour weeks and he's a billionaire. And Elon Musk was like, yeah, but Jeff Bezos doesn't even go into the office. And I was like, that's fair. And so...
But also counter to that, I mean, look at the success of ULA in comparison, Blue Origin.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Jeff Bezos is.
Yeah,
Blue Origin.
Yeah.
in comparison to SpaceX. Like if you look at those two, and you cannot help but analyze the differences between the owners.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
You know, and it's like the success of SpaceX and Tesla is so far greater than Blue Origin.
But you've got to also think like Tesla is a way better electric car company than Jeff Bezos doesn't have one. But Amazon is a much better online retail service.
But Blue Origin is a rocket ship company.
Right. But what I'm saying is like that's one company of like several major companies each of them have.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
Point is, on paper, they're both billionaires, right?
Right.
But I identified, it's not just whether or not you work hard, because one of my friends, you've met him, is a welder, and he works incredibly hard, right? But he'll never make more than $30 an hour as a welder.
Yeah.
So like, it's two factors. It's hard work and how smart you work. It's how hard you work and what you work on. You can be incredibly hardworking and work on the wrong thing, like a welder.
How fast are you driving and what road are you driving on?
Right. Or you can be incredibly smart and not have any work ethic at all. Like Greg was saying, he has. He doesn't work at all, but he's picked the right thing to work on, right? And it's interesting that he mentions that, because I find that I connect more with people who work hard on the right thing, or even work hard on the wrong thing. And I very, very rarely connect on people who work smart on the wrong or right thing. But the second quote that ties into this is from Tim Notkey. I don't know who it is. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Yeah.
Talent doesn't work hard.
Grit, grind.
Yeah. These two things go together. And that is interesting because in Formula One, Lewis Hamilton is incredibly talented. Maybe the most talented driver to ever live, right? But Max sim races till 4 a.m. on race nights before going to the track, right? So like, you know, fucking irrespective of talent, Max works harder, and that's why he's doing better right now. TLDR, I think that the correlation between hard work and what you're working on is very important. And that's why picking your $1 billion business is so integral. But if you don't have the hard work to support it, it doesn't fucking matter, because you've got to get incredibly lucky to reach the levels of success that you want if you're not a hard worker.
Yeah. Do you remember from the Chris Williamson and Alex Hormozi podcast, the connection one that was like 3 hours, the pottery class example?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell it.
No, I don't. I just fucking remind me.
That's right.
For the camera.
So there's this professor. He teaches a pottery class. Well, two. And one class, he says, all I need you to do by the end of the year is to build one great pot, the best pot you can do. And the other class, he says, all I need you to do this semester is build as many pots as possible. And throughout that semester, the students who were designated to just build as many as possible created much better products than the people who were just assigned to create one perfect product, right? And so I see that as a parallel to just working hard at something. Like if you just have grit, even if you aren't talented in it, if you just go through the motions and continue to do it and do it and do it, you will become good. Just in the same light as podcasting, right? If we gave ourselves, right, we've been doing this for what, 4 months, 5 months, something like that.
14th episode.
Yeah, 14th episode. If we spent from the time that we started in January until now just trying to figure out how to make the best podcast, I bet that singular podcast wouldn't be as good as the podcast we're going to release when this releases.
Right.
And, you know, maybe the podcast might be slower, but at least I think the shorts would be better because we've made a lot of changes in how we do the TikTok shorts.
I think across the board.
Yeah, and across the board, it would probably be better, right? But the point being is that if you just work hard at something and you just go for it and you continue to push, you will become good at it.
Yeah.
Right? It just takes repetition.
Yeah, I think work ethic is trumps all, right?
Yeah.
And especially considering, like, I'll pick two people, right? You and I are going to hire employees in the near future, right? When we're interviewing employees, I'll give you two different people, right? There's Dutchie, right? Who is a welder and works incredibly hard and doesn't make much money, right? And the other person I'll give you is pick someone from the SAE team who was pretty smart but did never apply themselves.
It's tough to run a lot of smart people.
Trish. So we have Trish and Dutchie, right? Someone who is smart but doesn't work very hard, and someone who works very hard but doesn't have a lot of like higher level education, right?
Yeah.
For our employee, who would you pick? It's a fucking slam dunk for me.
Yeah.
Because I want the person who works harder.
Right.
Period.
Of course.
Right?
Because even if they're smart, if they don't work hard, there's no product.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
doesn't matter.
Exactly. And that is another key attribute. I'm trying every episode to answer this question because a couple episodes ago, you asked me what attributes I look for in a business partner, and I didn't have good ones on the top of my head. So I think about it all the time now. And one of them is fucking insane work ethic.
Yeah.
Right. Because you can take someone with a good work ethic and drop literally smart or dumb businesses in front of them and they'll give it the same go. Right. So like you and I might work really hard at this business that we're about to open up, and then it fucking shuts down in a year and we have to start over, but we're going to work just as hard on the second one as we did on the first one, and we'll have more information behind us.
Yeah, I mean, and not to toot my own horn in this sense, but that's a fundamental reason why I didn't go to the Drift event yesterday. Was because I was sitting at home just finishing up my other stuff that I had done that day. And I was like, fucking, do I really want to go spend 6 hours and watch drifting? Like, I saw it yesterday for an hour. Like, I got my fix. It was fun and cool.
Yeah.
Like, I got some money out of my tickets. Like, do I really need to go today? And I was like, no. Like, I want to go and work. And I ended up getting to the bar to work with you. And I was trying to do something that I didn't have a mouse for. So I was like, fuck it. I'll just go back home, I guess. Whatever. But I sat down here where you were sitting and worked until, 12:30 or something like that. And, got a pretty good start on what I was trying to do.
Right.
And I was much happier with my decision. Like, I think I would have been upset with myself if I'd gone to the event just because I felt like I needed to because I had spent money on the tickets.
Right. And to toot my own horn, after going to bed at 12:30, you got my update text at 3.
I did.
Because I stayed up really late working.
I did. And then I got your good morning text at 2:30.
Yep. And then fucked it the next day by sleeping the entire day. But point being, we both have good work ethics, and that's why we work well together. An attribute that you look for in a business partner. But those are all of my quotes. I'm so happy because I never get through all my quotes.
I have one great last question to wrap us up.
Okay.
I think it's good if you're open to it.
Yeah.
Are you sure? I'm just kidding.
Don't make me change.
Alex Hormozi uses his future self for mentorship. Are you familiar with this frame?
His name is Solomon.
Yes. There you go. Who do you use for mentorship? And what kinds of questions do you ask them?
Literally everybody I come in contact with. Because if you sat Alex Hormozi down in front of me, I would ask him the same questions as if you sat down, fucking pick a person. Justin Wood, our buddy.
Yeah.
Right, who's just about to start at Northrop. Because what's more important to me than anything else when it comes to asking questions is the perspective of the person that I'm asking, because everybody has a different perspective, right? So, and I've gotten a lot of compliments for this at work recently. I've been put on a new task that I don't know anything about, but I've been asked for by name to work this task. And I've had a fucking a level-headed conversation with the dude running it. I'm like, hey man, I don't know anything about the systems you're asking me to help with. I don't know jack for dick. And he said, I know, but I like you and I want you to do it. And I was like, you shouldn't. I submitted terrible work to you last year. You should not want to work with me. And he was like, but you take responsibility for it and I like your communication style. And I was like, hear me when I say you shouldn't want to work with me. And he was like, please come to my team. And I was like, fine. So I'm doing this task, right? And as promised, in every meeting, we have a whole agenda to get through, right? We've never made it halfway through because I ask questions about everything. And I told him up front, I was like, I'm going to be a pain in your ass. I'm going to ask questions about fucking everything because I don't know anything and I need to know. And he was like, please do. You can never ask too many questions. And I said, I will challenge you on that. And I've asked so many questions. And it's interesting because the role that he wanted to hire me for, I turned down and someone else took that role. And so now I'm just supporting part-time, right? But the guy who is in that role full-time asks less questions than I do. And in a side with him, he was like, thank you for asking so many questions because I don't know this shit either. And I was like, yeah, dude, I'm happy to help. But I value the opinion of the most experienced person, the same as the least experienced person, so long as I'm looking for the opinion. Because if I'm not in a learning mood, I'm not going to ask the question. Right. But if I'm asking the question, I'll pay the same amount of attention to a mentor as to someone else, because at the end of the day, what is a mentor? It's just somebody who has more experience than you giving you advice and telling you their lessons. Right. But I find that I can get advice and learn lessons from people who have less experience than me, not in this related field, maybe, but in over a wide ranging conversation. I think I can learn from everybody I speak to.
Yeah. And I think you can learn from people in a negative or positive light.
Right.
You can learn from people if they say X, Y, and Z and it came up with this conclusion,
Mm-hmm.
you can go, okay, well, they did X, Y, and Z and they came to a spot that I don't want to be at.
Mm-hmm.
So I won't do that. Right. Or you can learn from people in the other light.
Yeah.
Right.
You can learn negative lessons.
Yeah.
Right? Learn what not to do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. I think I have a similar take, although I think I take to heart more of the podcast content that I listen to rather than just Joe Schmo that I meet out and about, right? Like if Joe Schmo when I meet out and about says, man, you really have to focus and work hard to make your dreams come true, right? That's a valid point, and I agree with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if Alex Hormozi gets on a podcast and he's like, dude, like you're not going to make shit happen unless you work hard, like that I think affects me more than the Joe Schmo that I meet on the street. Although it's the same content, it comes from a slightly different light, so it hits me a little bit differently, right? But I still think I try to pull value from it, and I still think about it, and I take it as it is, right? But I think I give a little bit more weight to the people who have shown me that they've done it.
Well, they have evidence to back it up.
Right. Exactly.
I think that I took a lesson from Hormozi a while ago, which is suit the reality that serves you best.
Yeah.
Right. And so if I hear a piece of advice from a homeless dude and a piece of advice from Elon Musk, right, regardless of what the piece of advice is, if it aligns with my values and my goals, I'll take it. So a great example of this is some of my quotes today are from Hormozi, right?
Yeah.
Actually, none of them were, but whatever.
Most weeks they are.
One of them's from Greg, who you could say is a mentor. He's more successful, right? But the other 3 quotes are people who I don't know. They could all be homeless people. I have no idea. I did not look into them, right? But hard work beats talent every time. If it's important to you, you will find a way. If not, you'll find an excuse. 2 things define you: your patience when you have nothing and your attitude when you have everything. All of those are great points that I would like to integrate into myself, and I have no idea who they came from, just because it serves me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Similarly, I find that if I give a high level of credence to people who are more successful than me and like I let it impact me more, right? That means I'm not shooting at you, but I'm just saying in my own head, I'm more susceptible to believe things that I shouldn't because I look up to them so much. So if Hormozi says, work hard and you'll accomplish your dreams, I'll go, oh yeah, write that down. I'll do that, right? Yeah. And if he also says, quit when you're at your peak, because I'll reference my TikTok from last week. Quit when you're at your peak because then they never know if you were actually had more in the tank or whatever. I'll question it. I'll go, that's fucking against your teachings, right? You're not making any sense here. This isn't what you normally preach. But if I bias my own opinion by saying, oh, I like everything this guy says, then, you know, I'm more likely to just chameleon to who he is. And I don't want to be him. I want to be myself.
My next point was going to be, I think I give more thought. So my next point was going to be, if Joe Schmo on the street says, oh, you can just lay in your bed until 10 a.m. It doesn't matter. I automatically go, okay, that's stupid. That contradicts what I think. And I leave it be, right? But if Alex Hormozi says, just lay in your bed until 10 a.m., it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I give it a lot of thought because I'm like, hold on, like that goes against everything that you teach and everything that I think and everything that I think would make someone successful. Like that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
But I give it more thought just because they're a larger figure.
Yeah. I probably give more thought to it too, because Hormozi has shown that he is successful. So everything that he says and does indicates success.
Well, I think there's evidence in the fact that you give it more thought because we talked about the athlete peak thing, right?
Right.
If Johnny at the bar said, oh, just quit at your best, it doesn't matter, we probably wouldn't have even talked about it. But the fact that Alex Hormozi said it, we had, a whole short on it.
Yeah, but that is, I disagreed with Hormozi and I would disagree with the guy at the bar. Because I try and take every piece of information that comes to me in my own internal thought process without bias. Okay. But I would say that when considering changing how I think and feel, I might give more credence to somebody who's more successful because it's an indicator of where that information could get me.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I try and remain unbiased and take the advice from anybody who I'm asking. Generally speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm on the same boat.
Good. All right,
cool. Very good podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. A little bit of a longer one this week. Hopefully you enjoyed it.
Dude, if people listen to Rogan for 6 hours, they'll listen to, anyone but us for 6 hours.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think critically, what I've come to find is that these podcasts, they're going to be fun to look back on. Maybe other people get value from it. But more than anything, I like the sanity check regularly of like a recap of, okay, where am I and what's happening, right? I feel like if we didn't have the podcast, the last 6 months might have just bled together into a whole, dude, next week, I think it will be a year since I started at Northrop.
Yeah, mine's coming up too.
Yeah.
June 26th.
Yeah, and I feel like everything since we started the podcast is kind of fuzzy, but everything since we've started the podcast, like it's their chapters, and I can discernibly say week by week how we're progressing and where we're going.
100%.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, thank you for tuning in. Be well. Enjoy your week. And thank you for listening.
See you next week.